your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.
Hey, welcome, horror fans. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Weekly Horoscope. I'm your host, Jerry, here with my partner, Matt, as always. And Matt, this week we're going to tackle something that is very prevalent in everything we do nowadays. We're going to talk about cyber insanity. And in this computer, internet information age, we have access to more information than anyone in history has ever. But within there's not a lot of filters. There's a lot of bad and misinformation. But that access also creates access from the other direction of people getting into your life that maybe you don't necessarily want there. So what do you think? What do you think of this topic?
Well, techno horror itself has been around in some form since storytelling. From the first people telling stories of armies with new types of weapons to technology of torture devices to dabbling in medical practices like Frankenstein to nuclear fear with Day the Earth Stood Still or AI Armageddon of Terminator. But then recently, in the past 20 years, we have a new type of technology that possesses us. And even more horrifyingly, it possesses our youth, and that's social media. And oftentimes we see these social media type movies, they tend to have a flair of like satire and mockery. But I believe that there's a true horror underneath that belly of techno-influential social beast of narcissistic desires for attention and to become an influencer. And at some points, that can almost have this like demonic religious tone. And I think some of these movies tend to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, there's been numerous articles written about the degradation of the mental health for the youth of the world based on social media. And you could basically make a documentary about people's relationship with their phones and have it be as horrific as anything we've seen and have it just be a factual documentary because, you know, technology is a great thing when used properly and enhances our lives. But when it takes your life away from you and becomes a false center of what you think is reality, it's all bad.
Yeah. And people, they kind of become consumed with it. You know, and it becomes the one thing that they pay attention to, like more than anything else in their life, and it kind of changes their personality sometimes, and it can be horrifying.
For sure, there's been some really good movies centered around internet horror, particularly in the last 20 years. Unfriended,
Yep.
Cam is one that comes to mind. Fear.com is almost, you know, spells it right out in the title. There's a Japanese movie, Pulse, and last year during COVID, there was an excellent, only about an hour long, but a Shudder movie called Host that was shot with people completely isolated, and it was all like a Zoom meeting, and but it was very haunting and it was very well done.
It was really well done.
Good examples, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. It was good for a short movie. I liked it. Because it didn't have too much fat to it. It was just right to the point. And it was like, oh, that was real cool.
We picked a couple movies that I like their difference in tone while tackling some of the same subject matter. I really did enjoy the diversity these two movies brought. And our first movie is called Tragedy Girls, and it's from 2017, directed by Tyler McIntyre. And I had not seen this movie prior to putting it on this list. And I got to tell you, I can't believe I hadn't seen it or heard of it. I was really shocked at how good it was.
Same. I had actually heard of it. It kind of blipped my radar a couple years ago, but I thought it was just going to be this real satirical Mean Girls. And I was just like, I don't know. That might be a little corny. And I was really shocked at how much I enjoyed it.
And we've talked about this before. I'm sometimes maybe overly harsh on the horror comedies and you know, feel that they miss a lot, that they fail in their application quite a bit. I was pleasantly surprised with this one. I thought the humor was dead on. It was very self-aware in a meta Scream like world, and I thought it was just really, really well done. The kills were excellent.
Yeah, the kills were really good. the two girls did a fantastic job of selling the characters. They did a really good job. Almost like they're charming, but at the same time they're just completely unapathetic and evil. And it just kind of, that in itself kind of made it funny how they just stay in that one character the whole movie. They don't break character.
Yeah,
There's no lessons learned.
no, you're dead on. It's you think like this is going somewhere,
Yeah.
and it really doesn't. It just continues, and
Yeah,
they don't break character at all.
Yeah, they do a lot of references to other horror movies, like even Breaking Bad. Like they're constantly referencing stuff. Like they like you said, it's very self-aware.
Yeah, absolutely. It begins our two main characters, Sadie and Michaela. They trap a masked killer named Lowell, and where they tase him and they tie him up. And
I just like to make a quick point. All three of them, the two girls and him, they were all X-Men in different X-Men movies.
is that right?
Yes, yeah, they all.
I was going to bring up the that he was the Lock and Key. Bad character was the Lowell, the killer, but I didn't know the X-Men.
Yeah, he was the Blob in the Wolverine movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they catch this killer and they tie him up, but not before he kills Craig, who's one of their classmates that they use as bait. And this begins their path of zero empathy, single-minded focus on their goals, to almost a shocking degree. They want the killer to teach them his ways, and their sole goal is to kill people so that they can capture images and stories fresh from the kill to drive up traffic on their Twitter page.
Yeah, which is a great plot. It's like, how do we get more viewers for being like detectives of this murder stuff? Well, we'll just murder people.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course their page is called The Tragedy Girls. And in a twist, Craig starts coughing and they find out that he's actually still alive. So rather than mess up any of their plans, they just finish him off. And then they use the Breaking Bad reference and they break down his body with lye and some other chemicals. And you're just like, wow, it was one thing to let him potentially be sacrificed as bait. They just actually finished him off. So it starts off pretty strong to get an idea of what they're out for.
Yeah, and the whole time they're just acting like ditzy influencers, like, oh, we just need viewers, and they're just like innocently chopping him up, like it's not even grossing them out.
Yeah, crazy. We meet Toby, who's one of Michaela's exes, and they find out that he has more Twitter followers than they do. So they devise a plan where they're going to crash his motorcycle and kill him. So they put out the police chains with the spikes.
Yep.
And his motorcycle flips and crashes and he flies off the side of the road, and then they stab him to death.
Yeah, and he's like, if anyone was going to kill me, I'm glad it was you. Like he's still passionately still loves her like it's Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, she kisses him as he dies.
Yeah.
And on the investigation, despite all the clear stab wounds, somehow his death is ruled an accident, which really upsets them because they didn't achieve their goal with this.
This movie has no forensics in it whatsoever. They get away with everything blatantly.
Yeah, everyone does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we meet Syl, who is the cheerleading captain, and she is on the prom committee, and she puts forward an idea to cancel prom in memory of the deceased students, because now Craig has died, Toby has died, and the girls are like, no.
It'll trigger everyone. They want everyone to grieve. Yeah.
So they obviously decide that she needs to be the next to go. And they trap her. She makes a book, a little book library that people can use to donate free books. And they smash it so that she goes into wood shop late at night to try to fix it. And that's where they trap her there. And to make sure it's not seen as an accident, and this is all played very comically, they're wearing masks, but she recognizes one of the girl's shoes because she made a statement about the fashion earlier. Then the mask falls off. So it's all very like over the top and ridiculous.
Yeah, they're having an argument right in front of her. They take the mask. They're like, I told you we shouldn't have worn this. Yeah.
But when it comes to the payoff, she ends up caught in a trap up in the ropes of the shop, and her head slides across the table saw, splitting it like a 2x4.
Which I thought was pretty cool because they kind of show like the head going through.
Yeah. And they want to make sure this isn't seen as an accident. So they cut her into pieces and hang them all over the shop to make it very clear that something happened.
Yeah. And then the janitor walks in and he's kind of whistling and they stop and freeze and he doesn't even notice. He just takes the trash and walks right out.
Yeah. Another,
Just to highlight how insane this movie is, how over the top, I should say.
Absolutely. Their site is starting to generate some recognition, and that is making them happy. They're kind of becoming minor celebrities in their small town. At a memorial, they kind of turn the community against the sheriff, whose son Jordan helps them and makes their videos for them and edits everything together.
Yeah.
And during this memorial, a big firefighter, Big Al, he kind of steps up and he's on their side and he kind of takes the cheer with them, but he steals some of their attention. He's saying, let's go, everybody. I'm going to catch this killer myself.
Well, what's funny is right before that, they're narcissistically plugging their blog. Like, we feel so bad for Sil. Follow us on our blog. And then he's had enough. It's almost like he's mad and he gets up. He wants to put an end to it. And then he starts plugging all of his achievements that he's done for the school.
Yeah.
And so it's like they're all just like narcissistic about their achievements and they're getting attention through other
Everyone has to
people's
one
pain.
up each other. And
Yeah.
So that now they're going to take out Big Al. And they're going to take him out at the gym. So they come up with this plot. But the plot fails and he's fighting back. And he's a big dude. It's actually Craig Robinson,
who is a producer of the movie. Yeah.
He's in a lot of comedies, Pizza Hut commercials.
Yeah, and he produced this movie.
Yeah. So they get into a kind of a fight, and he's about to kill Sadie. But then Michaela ultimately takes him out. And then in another really cool kill, they drop a super heavy weight bar.
A Smith machine. Yeah, it's a Smith machine. Just comes, they release it and it just comes right down on his head and splits his head in half.
Takes the top half of his head clean off. It's a mess.
Yeah, which is everyone's fear when they use a Smith machine.
That would be mine going after seeing this.
Yeah.
Jordan steals some information from his dad, the sheriff's computer, and he brings it to Sadie to help her investigation. He really likes her. Meanwhile, Big Al is found and school is canceled, and they decide there's going to be a town meeting and the sheriff implements a curfew. But the girls lead a rebellion saying, this is your fault for not acting and not taking this seriously. And they kind of lead a rebellion against the curfew. Meanwhile, the serial killer that they tied up at the beginning, Lowell, breaks free and is back on the prowl. And we see their after curfew protest march, and walking down the city streets, we find the female mayor, and she's impaled on a light pole, very reminiscent of Cannibal Holocaust, of the woman on the picture on the cover who's has that wooden stake impaled through her.
Yeah. They have a lot of nods to a lot of movies in this.
They talk about Dario Argento films.
They can't pronounce her name. They don't know. Yeah.
The one girl can't. And there's movie posters all over. So again, it's very aware of the world it's living in and attempting to honor.
They call him like a dollar store Jason or something like that later on.
Yeah. Jordan starts to become suspicious because these girls seem to always be around these killings. And he steals Michaela's phone. He tells him he's going to stop working with him, and he steals her phone, and he's going to look for evidence, but he can't access the phone. And this is the phone where they had the video link showing Lowell tied up.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't even check on him anymore. So they decide, well, they got to kill Jordan. And because Sadie kind of likes him, she says, well, she'll do it. And she gets there, and Jordan tells her how special she is to him, and they kiss, and she's about to finish him off when Lowell shows up and breaks in, and he takes a swipe, cutting Jordan's arm. Then Sadie stabs Lowell in the foot, waking up the sheriff, who shoots at Lowell and forces him to jump out the window.
Yeah.
And Michaela's outside watching the whole thing unfold.
Yeah, they're ruthless. They don't care. They'll just constantly backstab everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, they later on want to like team up with the serial killer, and like they've also just stabbed him and they were torturing him. Like they're just constantly conniving.
Yeah, they have zero human empathy for anybody or anything except maybe each other.
Yeah.
Sadie becomes a local hero for saving Jordan, and Michaela's a little unhappy with how it went down and how the attention went away from the two of them, and they have a fight and they split up. And Michaela decides she's going to partner up with Lowell after tasing him and locking him up and all these things.
And feeding him dog food.
Yeah. But they're going to work together now because they're like minds.
Yeah. Yeah. He's been trying to win her over to get her to let him free. So he's been trying to get in her head, and now she's going to use that, like, you've been right all along, and like kind of like make him convinced that they're going to team up.
Yeah. Kind of turns it back on him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the girls are actually never dumb. They may be completely insane with their plots, but they're never dumb.
That's actually what I like about them. Like they actually don't do stupid things. They actually manipulate people in this movie, and they're very ruthless. They're very consistent with their character.
They do psychotic things, but they're not dumb. Yeah.
Right.
So Jordan and Sadie, they go to the prom together and they win king and queen. And Michaela and Lowell are waiting outside, and they slice the teacher's throat, who's one of the chaperones. And Sadie comes out and sees Michaela, and she follows her. Jordan sees Sadie following Michaela and follows her, and then he stops and listens to their whole conversation where they break down all the things they've done wrong, the reason for their fights. They even admit to killing Jordan's mom years ago.
Yeah, and it's almost like that classic, the bad guy reveals his plan at the end in a 007 movie,
Yeah.
Like they're kind of just explaining everything, but it's campy on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, you think you got him tied up, so you go ahead and tell him your whole plot, and then he gets free and spoils it. Yeah, very much. There's almost like a Scooby-Doo type, mindset
element
in
to
some
it.
of these
Yes.
scenes too.
Yeah, yeah.
Lowell charges in with his machete, and Jordan pushes a wardrobe on top of him, and the three of them try to run away. And they climb up into the rafters they're in like the theater section of the school.
Yeah.
And Lowell gives chase. And him and Michaela start arguing because he thinks they're on the same side, but now she's kind of talked it out with Sadie. And then Michaela just shoots him. And serial killer's done.
Yeah, he falls down. He's done.
And the two girls hug, and Jordan's like, well, wait a minute. He wants Michaela arrested and says, look, I've heard, the stuff you've done, and you can't get away with this.
You killed my mom. Yeah.
And Sadie goes over to him and kisses him. And then while he's being kissed, she loops the rope around his neck and pushes him off the balcony that they're on.
Yeah. She's like, you don't know anything about me.
So there is, like we talked about, there is no empathy for anybody.
No.
And the girls finish it off by holding hands and locking all the doors to the prom and setting it on fire.
Yeah, which is a great ending, because if it had ended there, I would have been bummed out. I was like, that's it? But no, there's more.
Yeah, they kill the entire school of people at the prom.
Yeah.
And at the end, it kind of shows them, like, on book tours, and they kind of achieve the notoriety and fame they were looking for. But man, they're messed up characters.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines in the movie was, it was almost like American Pie, like they're ripping it off. They're like, you don't want to go to college. We're going to be in college next semester. You want to spend all going into college not having our first killing spree? Like,
yeah. A lot of pop culture references, and I thought it was, this type of movie can easily miss for me. I thought it was good. I thought it was funny. I thought the kills were really good, and the story was enjoyable.
It was executed very well. It had good cinematography. It was just the right amount of corny funny. and that also had like you said, really good kill scenes. It had everything. It wasn't too slow. They kept the pacing really good. So it was like one kill after another. There wasn't too much filler. It was an enjoyable movie.
And I think the ridiculousness of it, like a lot of movies and stories, you look for characters that people can relate to. Nobody can relate to these two characters. So even though they play it straight, it clearly sends the message about the potential evils of focusing on the social media and your likes and your followers outside of real life. So I think it delivers the message, even though the main characters don't ever embrace any change.
Well, I think everyone in that universe is narcissistic. Like even when they're sitting in the sheriff's office, the deputy's sitting there. He's like, girls, you should spend this time off by honoring their memory online as much as you should. You know, like, and he says it real calm, like a therapist, but it's like, no, that's the unhealthy thing to do. You know what I mean? But like everyone in this town just has this online mindset. So like they're all like possessed by this like social media-esque type behavior.
Yeah, no, very enjoyable movie. I was glad to watch it, and thought it fit our category perfectly.
Yeah, great pick.
Our second film is The Cleansing Hour from 2019, directed by Damien Levick, and the movie opens with an exorcism. No backstory. We just walk right into an exorcism, and it's got all the tropes. It's got the crosses and the prayers and the holy water, and there's fire and there's blood. And there's demon speak and all the things you expect, and it's fairly well done. You'd say, okay, here's a good opening scene of a movie, and we find out quickly it's all a show. After the quote unquote successful exorcism, it's a live stream. It's all staged and it's all for money.
Yeah, it almost has this infomercial type feel to it. You know, like the way it's like an exorcism infomercial. Like they're selling like Vatican towels and products, and like he's like charming and smiling, like with like the little infographics that they put up and stuff. And it's like cue to this and cue to that, and like there's a whole production to it.
Yep. Yeah. He could have been selling the ShamWow, but it's
that's
Vatican blessed cloths, and it's all about money. The whole show is about money, and they're trying to grow their followers. It's and our main characters are Max, who's the quote unquote priest, and Drew, who is the behind the scenes producer, makes everything else go, and they're childhood friends.
Yeah, they were altar boys together, so they really did kind of go through the Catholic upbringing.
And we see very quickly that Max is very arrogant. He's concerned with likes and views. He wants to be the charmer. They go out to a bar and he loves all the attention and sings karaoke and goes home with a groupie. And you can just tell he's not what he portrays.
Yeah, he's fake. Yeah, he's like an actor.
Yeah, and a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Drew talks about expanding the show. He's got some other ideas that he thinks can give him a broader viewing range, but Max won't listen to any idea where he's not the star of the show. Back to that narcissistic, and I guess when we get into these social media horror movies, I think narcissism is going to be the first trait that you're going to find runs so deeply through many of them.
Yeah, I agree. I bet if you picked, 10 of them, 8 of them would have that theme,
And Max certainly has that. Their next show is supposed to star a drag queen. And the drag queen gets abducted on the way to the show and never makes it. And we believe this is kind of part of a plot. We figure out later on there's a reason that there's a little they drop little foreshadowing breadcrumbs, like that the abduction, like it's this guy that jumps out of the shadows and almost has this quick demon look to him, but you're not really sure. Maybe he's just a homeless guy, but it's just like it's quick, it's shadowy. He's got like kind of palish skin, so you're not 100% convinced what it was, but you kind of have an idea. At one point, he's scooting around on all fours, so he's almost animalistic, but. Drew's fiance Lane is trying to convince Drew to get out of the show, and she's telling him that Max is only in it for himself. And, you know, they have this bond. They've been together since childhood. So he wants to stick with him.
And she booked a movie with Jared Leto in a new zombie movie. So she's trying to become this up and coming actress. So she has to leave the show, and he's kind of bummed out. He's like, "Oh, we were going to lose you to the show. That stinks." And he's like, "Well, you should too. And you need to start your own new career."
Yeah. Come with me. And let's move on from this.
Yeah.
So when the drag queen doesn't show up, Drew convinces Lane to fill in. And while all this is happening, there's a sound guy named Chris, and he gets sick. He was out with him at the bar the night before, and he vomits. He's not feeling well, you know. And Drew's telling him, "Hey man, clean yourself up. Show's getting ready to go. You're like, you didn't drink that much last night."
Yeah.
Max is unhappy with the switch. He really wanted the drag queen, but he's got Lane, and he doesn't really have a choice because they're getting ready to go live.
Yeah, they got 5 minutes or something like that.
And when they start to go live, you know, the first few seconds go completely normal. You see all their graphics, and they start selling their stuff like they do. And then Lane speaks in a demon voice that's very roaring and very convincing. Wow, this girl can really act.
Yeah.
And
she starts to have that look in her, that classic possessed look. I don't know why that's a classic look, but it's become one, like the pearl whited eyes with the purple under the eyes, and it just like it's like that classic possessed look.
Yep, she does, and it's subtle. It's not like she doesn't become like an Evil Dead character where it's right. Obvious. It's a little bit subtle to it. The eyes pale a little bit, as you mentioned. Just her complexion changes a little bit.
Kind of reminds me of Evil Dead, how they made the girl look with that look.
Yeah. The sound guy that wasn't feeling well, he drops the boom mic and he runs into the bathroom, and he sees blood all in the sink and blood everywhere, and then he gets hit and is knocked out. Max is trying to keep with the script, and he starts pouring holy water on Lane, and it kind of steams off in red, which is like not the special effect they've used before. It's like that's not our effect at all.
Yeah, everyone's kind of like, huh? And she has this like legitimate like howling scream that makes everyone go, whoa.
Yeah, and she is now completely off script. She's not following the script at all. They don't really know what to do. And she takes the special effects man and sets him on fire. And he burns completely to a crisp and falls to the ground and crawls and just smolders out. It's like,
he's got the tattoo. He's got flaming tattoos. She's like, are those real? And then he just bursts in flames.
And they become real.
Yeah.
Yes. So they want to shut it down. Like this man just died in front of them. He burnt to a crisp. The place had to smell awful.
Yeah, and his face melted on Riley's leg and it peeled off. And I thought that was pretty cool.
That was a pretty good effect, yes.
Yeah.
But the demon, speaking through Lane, tells them they need to keep streaming or it's going to kill the girl. And no one leaves, so it's going to kill the girl. And they better do what the demon says.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing it does is force Max to strip completely naked and has him do the hokey pokey in broken glass.
Yeah, with the fan, with like a ceiling fan right in front of him. So as he puts his hands out, it starts hitting his hand.
Yeah, it was the wildest thing that you wouldn't expect to find in a movie like this.
Which is ironic because I thought that scene was a little hokey, right? And I think that was kind of the whole joke. Like,
yeah. There's some of this they stay pure horror and they do it pretty well. Sometimes it gets a little cheesy a couple times. That's probably one of them.
Yeah. It does do that throughout the movie. They throw in like the lighthearted humor once in a while. Just like even with like how they're narcissistic and silly people, like these Hollywood type people, like, and it kind of has an ebb and flow to it. But I think some of the horror effects were really done really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm always a fan of someone being completely turned on fire. Like I love that effect. It never gets old to me. Like when Tommy, the guy, like he's just completely like there's a guy in a suit that has to do that, and I'm like, I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, and it was done pretty well.
Yeah,
particularly like you said, the face pulling off, the completely burnt face. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Lane is trying to fight for control of her own body, trying to fight the demon, and she starts choking horribly. And Max reaches in and he pulls out one of their cloths that they're selling, and the demon is telling them, he wants them to tell the truth. At this point, he wants them to tell the truth about their merchandise. So they finally get, they're trying to convince him to, you're scamming everybody. You're nothing but a liar and a scammer.
Yeah.
And so Lane starts choking again, and this time Max reaches in, and Lane bites two of his fingers clean off, spits them out. Just
just crunches them right down. That was a cool effect too. I thought they did some really cool stuff.
So Max does confess. The cloths they just buy them in bulk from China. They're not special. They haven't been blessed by the Vatican. The holy water he just gets from his bathroom at home. None of it's real. But he admits to that, and we think, okay.
Yeah. So these parts, it seems like at this point in the movie, what's happening is that this demon is making them all, like, it's an atonement. Like they have to atone for all the major lies and the sins they've been doing. They have to do it live on air on the podcast. And if they cut the feed, she's going to kill Lane. It's like, if you cut this feed, I'm going to kill Lane. If you try to leave, I'm going to kill Lane. You're going to admit to everything, or I'm going to kill Lane. And so now he has to start atoning on air live in front of everyone, and they start picking everyone apart.
Yeah. And after Max confesses about all the merchandise, the demon looks at Drew and now wants Drew to confess something. And we find out Drew has been keeping most of the profits from the show.
Yeah, she spits a coin at him, and it's like an old Caesar coin, but it says Drew on it.
Yeah.
And so he's been stealing, so he has to admit it.
Yeah. At this point, the intern that had the face melted to her leg just takes off and tries to run away, and they take the demon just takes one of the statues from the wall and just impales her in the head with it, and down she goes.
Bites her right in the back of the head.
Yeah, just down she goes. The feed is starting to drop, and Lane is again seems to be getting control of her body, and there's a struggle back and forth between the demon and Lane. But Drew goes in and he restores the feed, and he brings Chris out of the bathroom with him. But following Chris are these little demon creatures that only he can see. And he's got a blade, and he's trying to fight them off of him, and ends up cutting himself to the point where he just slices himself to death on camera. So awful ending for him.
Yep.
The demon decides to put Max in a noose and puts him up on a stool with a rope around his neck. And they're going to let the viewers decide his fate. And can he convince them of his worthiness of being saved, is what it boils down to.
Yeah.
And at this point, he starts confessing everything, that he's a phony, he's a fraud. And as he's going through these confessions, we see flashbacks to the two boys as young kids. And he admits to killing a nun as a young boy when he was trying to protect Drew, and says he's been haunted by her ever since.
Yeah. And he comes out and he's talking, and he's saying that, like, that's what else do you want? And the demon looks at him and says, the mobs don't care about the truth. And I thought that was actually a cool line, because it kind of plays into the whole like online bullying, going viral. Like, people just want to pile in, and they don't care about the truth. They just want to bully people. And you see a lot of that online behavior. I thought that was kind of cool how they put that in there.
Yeah, very, very introspective to do that. I agree. They do some clever things in this movie. I thought it was, I liked it. We talked about this before. It tries to be different. When, there might be things like this, but I hadn't seen anything that quite played out like this. I thought it was unique, at least.
It was very unique. That's one thing I liked about this movie above all else, is its uniqueness.
The feed is basically being broadcast everywhere now. News outlets have picked it up. They're showing live cuts of it. So the exposure that they're looking for is there. Only the scenario is not one they're in control of anymore.
Yeah, it's getting to the point where it's in the tens of millions, and it's actually their servers can't handle it, and it starts to like override the servers, and so that becomes another issue.
Yeah. Lane is still fighting for control of her body, and she appears from time to time, but the stool gets knocked out from under Max, and he is struggling with the rope around his neck. And at this point, Lane gets enough control to tell Drew that they're being played, and that's all she can really get out. And Drew kind of figures out that this demon needs everybody to see and hear, so he cuts the feed. And everyone gets sorry, we're having technical difficulties signal, and the viewer numbers start to drop. So he kind of called the bluff on the demon, which now has to release Max, and Drew then restores the feed. So they're back. Yeah. They're back live. So they kind of have figured out something where they at least can go back and forth with control on.
Yeah, and at this point they also realize that the demon is Aemon. It's an ancient one, one of the ancient demons. So now that they have its name, they can use the proper exorcism to banish it.
Yes, even though the show was phony, they had looked up and done a lot of research to build a database and look up demons, what their powers were, and so Drew figures out what demon this is, and he's sending Max the chance to work against it. And he doesn't get all of them out before the demon reasserts itself and forces Max and Lane to admit that they had a fling before Lane and Drew were together. And they say, it was a long time ago. It was nothing. It was, he's a jerk. He's a narcissist. You know all this. And then the demon takes control of Max's phone and broadcasts a video of them together. And it's obviously something that Max
they were just in bed. Yeah. And he had kept it on his phone.
Yeah. And Drew is like, why do you still have a video of my fiance?
Right.
And he punches Max and he gets on top of him and he's choking him and he calls him a user and a leech.
Yeah.
And the demon's basically cheering Drew on to kill Max.
Yeah. And Max is like, it's driving us apart. And he's like, good, I like the way it thinks, and hits him.
Yeah. But instead of killing Max, Drew uses the opportunity to show him the rest of the chant that he didn't get to finish. So then Max,
he's got the Google glasses on, that his dad had given him.
Yeah, in a convenient plot insertion, his dad had just happened to send him those.
Yeah.
So he looked at the whole chant and then put it on the glasses so he could show it directly to Max while he was choking him.
Yeah, and they make a funny line when he opens the box from the gift from his dad in the beginning. He takes the Google glasses out, and he's like, "Wow, my dad's sending me ancient, archaic technology that's not useful." Because Google glasses tried to come out in the early 2000s, and everyone was like, "No, that's not going to work." So they've kind of inserted a joke about using those. They had the idea to use it in the movie, but they had to also be honest about how no one uses that technology. So it was kind of funny.
Yeah, and I from what I read about it, privacy became a big issue with the Google glasses because you could record people and take photos without nobody knowing.
Yeah, there was a lot of it. Just never took off. It wasn't gonna.
Yeah. So he gives him the rest of the incantation to recite, and he does it, and it appears the demon is gone. So Drew releases Lane, and he's oh my God, glad you're okay. And instead, Lane attacks Max and is going to kill him. But Drew then continues. They keep stopping before they finish this passage, thinking it's over.
Yeah.
Drew then grabs the actual book, the original book, and he recites the remainder of the passage. And the demon
he's able to find it in a book this thick.
Yeah, quickly. Yeah, and the book's on fire, but he gets it out of there and gets the fire out too.
Yeah.
But he gets it. He gets it. It's all said, and the demon departs once and for all.
And then Lane just she wakes up normally, what happened?
Yeah, what's going on? So we okay. Lane is safe at this point. The burnt special effects man, who's just been laying there burnt into a huddle off to the side, suddenly rises up. Yeah. And he grows in stature, and he gets big and thick and Then he splits open his burnt and cracked skin that looks like lava trying to harden.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost
Splits
like
open like an insect.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking, like a cocoon or something like that.
Yeah, it just cracks in solid forms, and he just
You
splits
see
out.
like an arm starting to extend out, and it's this big, huge arm, and like the neck and the shoulders, and like a head releases. It
The
was pretty
budget
cool.
on this movie wasn't huge. It wasn't a big studio release, and some of the CGI is a little wonky.
Hmm.
But all in all, I thought they did a pretty good job with that scene. You know, you could nitpick it, I suppose. It wasn't flawless, but they emerged with a pretty cool scene of the demon splitting through this skin and crawling out. And now you got the real demon. And you
Yeah,
find out that the Anon demon was misdirection the whole time.
yeah,
That's not the right demon, and he purposely misled them to think that.
yeah, yeah.
And
He tells
now,
them, he was like, "I made that list. I made your database." Yeah,
right,
yeah,
yeah. And the demon now turns and speaks directly into the camera that's being streamed everywhere, and he says a passage,
yeah. And like it's
and
like Latin or something like that, and he has like swirling, fiery eyes, like he's hypnotizing everyone.
he does. All the viewers, we kept seeing glimpses of all the different pockets of people who were watching the show.
Yeah,
All the viewers get that pale, milky-eyed look, and they all start killing people around them because they're now
yeah.
completely possessed by this demon. So
And they show all of those kills, so it's a nice little cherry on top at the end of the movie.
agree, and that was a twist. I didn't really see it coming. The whole thing was a ploy. They used this fool who was playing on people and misleading people
Yeah,
to get real viewers, but for nefarious
yeah.
purposes.
Yeah, when I saw this movie when it came out years ago in 2017, and I was actually really impressed with the plot. I was like, they got me. Like that was like really cool. When I went back and thought about it, I was like, wow, like the devil using a podcast to get streamer, like the whole thing, like they're using a fake exorcism podcast to get on to get viewers so you can hypnotize everyone. I was like, all right, that's pretty unique. That was cool.
And the reason it works is because you have someone who is willing to lie, deceive,
Yes.
and put this
Yeah.
whole show on all in the name of drawing eyeballs and likes and attention.
Yeah, and even at the end, when they finally goes through all that atonement, he gets Father Max gets a notification on his phone, and he looks at his phone, and it's the picture of like a girl, like scantily dressed, and I was like, of course. And then he like flips it open, and it says, "You have 4 million new followers on Twitter," and he just kind of has this like satisfied look, like I did it. It's like, dude, you don't care what just happened, like you didn't learn anything.
Yeah, the world's going to be torn apart by these
All you care about is you have your 4 million followers.
yeah, 14 million people just became demons and are killing the rest of the world. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's going to
Yeah.
be nobody left to follow.
He's got a lot of content on his podcast coming up.
Yeah, yeah. So it was it's a good movie. I also saw it a couple years ago, or
Mhm.
2019 it came out. I saw it on Shudder probably in 2020. And I honestly liked it better rewatching it.
Yeah.
I thought, there was some clever twists in there. The effects were pretty good for the budget they had to work with. The acting was all good. Everybody played their role perfectly, I thought.
Yeah. And it's only an hour and 30 minutes. It's not overdrawn at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are two examples of cyber insanity where the internet brings the world to you, but it's a two-way street, and you got to be careful what you let in.
Yeah, it's well said. Yeah.
All right. Well, that is our show for this week. We appreciate you for listening as always. A special note and congratulations to you, Matt. Matt and I just published a novella that we've been working on together called Rose's Addiction. It's available on Kindle, available in paperback, and so far it's been going very well. So hats off to you for getting that done.
Hats off to you for helping. I mean, you were right there the whole time.
Oh, cool. If you're interested, you can check that out, Rose's Addiction. And there'll be more books coming out, but our podcast will keep coming.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week with another topic that's it's an interesting one that kind of goes back to again some of the very origins of horror, and that'll be exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I'm also looking forward to writing some more books in the future too. So I hope everyone stays tuned.
All right. Sounds good. Well, that is our show for this week. We are the Weekly Horoscope. I'm Jerry. That's Matt. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jerry.
Your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.